computerized. From the Magic City, the sun and fun capital of the world, Miami, Florida, through the magic of the NCR 315 computer, Warner Productions proudly presents the all-time heavyweight championship tournament.
Hi, everybody. This is Murray Warner at the Miami Convention Hall for the second fight in the 15-fight all-time heavyweight tournament. Tonight, featuring another pair from the 16 greatest heavyweight fighters who ever lived. The Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan, in a mythical match with the Cinderella Man, Jimmy Braddock. The all-time heavyweight tournament is made possible through the cooperation of the City of Miami, Ring Magazine, Chris and Angelo Dundee, and Hank Kaplan, former president of the World Boxing Historians Association. We'll be back in a moment with Guy LeBeau and the details and some comments about tonight's match. Back once again at the Miami Convention Hall, and here's the man who in just a few minutes will be describing the action from ringside, Guy LeBeau.
Thank you, Murray Warner. Good evening, everybody. I would just like to repeat now that none of these fights ever really happened. They are the results of the careful scientific research and the brilliant advances in computer technology by the people at NCR.
And without further ado, let's get into tonight's fight.
Right you are, and tonight our all-time heavyweight tournament matches one of the legendary giants of the ring, the Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan, and that comeback man, James Braddock.
With the winner to meet Jack Dempsey, who last week pulled a knockout victory over Jim Corbett in 7 rounds.
John Lawrence Sullivan used to have a favorite line. He would walk into a tavern or a bar and bellow at the top of his voice, "I can lick any man in the house," and not infrequently he had to prove that he could.
The great John L. is tough by any measure. However, more has been said about his tremendous stamina than anything else, except for his great punching power. But in looking at the record, it's a good idea to remember that the discussion of the 75 rounds of battle with Jake Kilrain was a long way from typical of his matches. In fact, only 3 times in John L.'s career did he go more than 10 rounds.
That's interesting, Murray Warner, because I'm sure that a lot of listeners pictured almost every fight in those days going 30 or 40 rounds. In any event, John L. Sullivan was a tough, brawling kind of fighter who enjoyed the fighting as much as the winning, both in and out of the ring.
John L.'s opponent tonight, the Cinderella Man, Jimmy Braddock. Here's a guy who didn't mind a brawl either. Jimmy, though taller than John L. by 3.5 inches at 6 feet 2, is 3 pounds lighter, weighing 197, and has only a 1-inch reach advantage. And while John L. is wide open to almost any punch, Jimmy's a better-than-average defensive fighter who's hard to hit with a solid punch.
And that could have tremendous importance in the fight tonight, but it won't be long before we'll really know.
Well, this is another of those fights, Guy, where we have disagreement between the experts as to how the fight will probably come out. For example, former title holder Max Schmeling felt that the stand-up, open, taking style of Sullivan couldn't cut it with Braddock.
I haven't seen this grand old man. I haven't seen him. I don't know. It may be different, between Braddock and Sullivan. But Sullivan, it was the old style too, standing straight and slow moving. And I remember, I think he had a mustard too, yes?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know, but I still would pick Braddock.
That's interesting, Murray, because that's a reaction that I would expect to hear.
I know, Guy, but what's more interesting is the strong reaction the other way from Nat Fleischer, the editor of Ring Magazine.
I don't think that a fight of that type, both in that prime, would have lasted more than possibly 3 or 4 rounds with Sullivan the victor by a knockout.
Wow, talk about disagreement. I see what you mean when you say it's tough to pick the winners of this series of fights in advance.
Sure, it's tough, Guy. And that's why we have this great contest going and are offering that beautiful Seabird 26-foot sedan cruiser to the person who can come closest to predicting the outcome of the fights, with earliest postmark counting. The contest stays open, by the way, through midnight November 5th, and there are lots of other great prizes, too. There's even a great prize for the fighters involved. The winner will be presented with a magnificent $10,000 gold and precious stones belt as the all-time heavyweight champion of the world. That belt, by the way, was made for us and is being given by Regal Crest Jewelry of Miami. So there's lots more than just the fights to listen to. There are more than $20,000 in prizes involved for the fighters and for the listeners, too.
Pretty good. Now, let's get back to the expert opinion on tonight's match. I think that one of the most interesting comments about the old-timers comes from a real old-timer, Jess Willard. Big Jess lives in Sunland, California now, and we asked him about John L.
Well, I met the old gentleman before he died and got quite well acquainted with him in Boston.
How good was he?
Oh, he fought at a different time and entirely a different deal. Every time he went out on a knee, they called it a round. And they scuffled and wrestled and pushed and touched and done a lot of things that they don't allow them to do now at all.
How do you think he would do against a Jimmy Braddock?
That's an awful hard thing to figure because it's an entirely different business. It's a different way of boxing, different way of fighting and everything. You couldn't compare them at all because it's a different business.
So you see, as far as the experts, they go one for Sullivan, one for Braddock, one for no decision. We'll be back in a moment with more about tonight's fight.
Back again at Miami, Florida for the dream match between John L. Sullivan and Jimmy Braddock. Former heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano knows quite a bit about Braddock.
I know quite a bit about Jimmy Braddock because one of his best friends is my best friend, and he told me that Braddock really was a fighter, a good fighter. He was a good pro who had been through the mill. He gave the great Joe Louis a good fight as far as it went. He had Louis down, I believe, early in the fight. But, of course, the great Joe Louis, who was much superior to anybody, came up and beat Jimmy Braddock.
How would you picture a Braddock-Sullivan fight?
I would have to say Sullivan because of the many, many stories that I've heard about him, about his strength, about his punch, about his durability, about when in his prime when he really was the strong boy. Braddock was good, but I just can't picture him as that great.
An interesting sidelight here, I think, is that going into the ring tonight, both men are in their prime, with Sullivan at 24 years of age, while Braddock comes in at 30, since he matured later in life. Kurt Severin has an unusual background. He was the third man in the ring the night Max Schmeling won the amateur title in Germany. Kurt, how do you think Sullivan and Braddock will make out?
Well, it's hard for me to say. It's hard to see Sullivan in any of the fights with our contemporary or with the fighters of our golden area or golden period of boxing, that is after World War I. Yes, Braddock is actually the in my opinion, the weakest link in this whole chain. But with far greater limitation on John L's side, I think Braddock would have had a very good chance.
So another expert goes with Braddock against Sullivan. Of all the people we've talked to about the all-time heavyweight tournament, probably this one fight has brought more divided opinions about the outcome.
Well, right you are, Murray Warner, and since I have to scoot down to ringside in just a couple of moments, I thought now might be a mighty good time to get Jim Braddock's own views of this fight. Jim, what kind of a fight would it have been between Braddock and John L. Sullivan?
Well, it would have been like...
The Irish would have been divided, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, it would have been two Irishmen in there, and it would have been the real County Kenny brawl, I think.
Assume, Jim, you're going to fight him with 8-ounce gloves in modern rules.
Would that have made something of a difference?
No, I don't think with the punch and ability of the two of us, it would have made much difference in when we landed the punch. But the main thing, which in every fight would have showed up, is the condition.
Now with John L. Sullivan, how do you think you'd handle him?
He was strictly in line for that right-hand punch, and I might have done all right with a fellow like John L. Sullivan. Might have knocked
A
him
little
out.
better than you might...
Yes, than with a boxer, yes.
Right.
John L. was one of the greats of boxing. He goes way back to the 1880s when the Marquis of Queensberry rules first come in. He was a real tough, they say, a barroom fighter. He was a real brawler, in the ring and out of the ring.
have you ever heard about how hard would you say John L. could?
Well, I don't know how hard he could hit, but we had some pretty good punches around, and in our day, a fellow like Max Baer could hit you and knock you out in the third row.
In a moment, we'll be heading down the ringside for some final words with Guy Laveau and the introductions of our fighters. We'll be back in 1 minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, both fighters now in the ring. Sullivan to my left, wearing white tights. Braddock to my right, tall, lean. We're just moments away from the beginning of the second fight in the all-time heavyweight tournament.
In this brief period, Guy, we might get the opinions of Chris and Angelo Dundee about the outcome of this match. Chris said,
I think there'd been no contest. I think that Braddock would have knocked out John L. Sullivan. I think he'd have cut him up badly where the referee would have had to stop the fight.
his brother Angelo is on the same side, talking about Sullivan.
You know, it must have been fantastic because the guy was capable of taking that punishment and dishing it out. This was fantastic. I didn't know. See, now, I'm at a loss there. How long were the rounds in those days?
Until somebody got knocked down.
Well, that was long enough. That was long enough. Because they were beating each other pretty good. Now, I feel that Braddock will lick Sullivan.
And, of course, the great Joe Louis thinks a great deal of Jimmy Braddock.
Well, Braddock, he was a very, very good right-hand puncher. So if he hit you, he hurt the Empire State Building.
He caught you in the first round.
That's right, yeah. I don't know too much about Sullivan. I don't know. I don't think I saw no picture of him, and a movie picture of him. Anything. But I don't know. I would have to pick Braddock. I'll do Braddock.
I think the most interesting thing about all of these in-the-know people is the disagreement between them on how this fight will go. But here is Jack Sharkey.
There again we go, and turning back the pages of time. It would be a wonderful thing to witness all those fights. But when you've got a fellow in there and you hit him your best punch, he says, if that's the best you can punch, kid, you better get yourself a reputation. What would happen to Braddock, or what would Braddock be thinking if he hit Sullivan with his best Sunday punch and Sullivan kept on coming?
Well, it won't be long now before we find out if Sullivan could keep coming, as this fight will be getting underway shortly.
Joe Gould, Jimmy Braddock's manager, in a tight conversation with Jimmy right now, who's completely bundled in his robe, towel over his head, his seconds lacing up the gloves, everybody peering that way. Gould gesturing now toward the opposite side of the ring, where referee Ruby Goldstein is examining the gloves being laced under the hands of the great John L., who surely doesn't like them. Who in his career, by the way, in the ring and on stage, has earned $1.25 million, and that's a lot of cabbage.
Yeah, that was back in the days when there were no income taxes to tap the till, and beer was a nickel a glass, including a free lunch.
Stop, you're breaking my heart.
Okay, no more.
Getting back to our scene at ringside right now, Mike Cleary and Bill Muldoon, Sullivan's traditional seconds, have now finished with his gloves. Referee Goldstein crosses the ring to take a look at the gloves on the Cinderella Man's hands. Neither fighter sitting down. Interesting. Both shuffling their feet, anxiously awaiting the beginning of the second fight for the all-time title. And we might point out, with them, more than 20,000 people jamming Miami Convention Hall. Now, ring announcer Paul Berman trying to get the crowd quieted down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's move up to the ring. And here is Paul Berman. As referee Ruby Goldstein calls the fighters to ring center for their instructions, we'll be back in just 1 minute with round one.
Seconds are out of the ring. Everybody sitting on the edges of their chair waiting for the big one, the start of round one. Here's the bell, and here's Guy.
Thank you, Murray Warner. And ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the unbelievable John L. Sullivan and the miracle Cinderella Man, James Braddock. All eyes on John L. Sullivan as he assumes his traditional stance, left held out, right held at the waist. He moves forward slowly. Braddock touches his gloves in sportsmanship, dances to the left. Big Braddock is forward on his toes, circling. Now here's Braddock testing reactions. Here is a left lead, perhaps just a feint. It was very, very short. No movement from Sullivan yet. He judged it to be short, apparently. Now Sullivan moves forward, hasn't gotten his fists off to a target yet. He moves better than he did against Jim Corbett, no doubt about that. But Corbett was the first boxer Big John ever saw. Here's Braddock again moving forward, a left lead. He got it closer to Sullivan's head, but still it missed. Braddock has the left held fairly high, but not in jab position. They're just fencing. Now Sullivan throws a long right to the body, is a little off balance, and can't follow up. And Braddock flicks lightly at the jaw, grazes Sullivan, and surprises Big John by tying him up solidly. It is quiet in Miami Convention Hall. There's a great deal of interest in watching the immortal John L. Sullivan can't be happy by drawing a clever boxer like Braddock for his first opponent. Jim is making no brave moves either. Here Sullivan will strike left to the heart as Braddock closes to bring his own right to the face. Braddock takes a right to the body. They're hard blows, but not exceptionally so. Sullivan again drives a right to the heart, and as he closes with Braddock, the Cinderella Man unleashes a package of left hook right cross to the jaw. Here is Braddock again, scoring with a combination left hook right cross to the jaw. Sullivan belts the body with a right hand, sends a light left to the head, comes back with a left to the head, but Braddock rakes Sullivan again with a flashing 1-2 combination. Beautifully. They clinch at ring center. Most of the fight has been there. We'll be watching for Braddock's little dancing steps around the center of the ring. You know, it's noticeable Braddock hasn't tried a shot at Sullivan's body yet. Big John, the Boston bully boy, now moves back at Braddock slowly, but drives a straight right to the head, and for that went tippy-toes and up in the air, because Braddock is many inches taller, but he bruised Jim with that one. Now they're back to circling again. Braddock never uses much of the ring, and of course Sullivan's entire career nearly was fought fighting off a mark from which a fighter could not stray according to the rules. Here's Braddock mixing with Sullivan. They wrap each other's arms with flailing hooks, but Braddock uncorks a driving uppercut to the chin of Sullivan, who without wincing or blinking comes straight back at Braddock and wraps the body hard with the right hand and throws a long overhand left to the head of Braddock. They back off. I have a feeling that the feeling it out game may be over. Braddock knows that Sullivan has learned since the Corbett bout, and there seems to be little doubt about that, as here Sullivan nicely blocks a left to the head, takes a straight right, and blocks another left at the chin, at the bell.
Neither man shaken up or hurt in that first round, and round two just about ready to get underway.
Okay, Murray, the crowd and Braddock have seen a somewhat smarter John L. Bully boy moves in. Braddock dances lightly to the left, then the right. He is not a great hitter, but Braddock is strong, too. He knocked Lewis down. Now Braddock takes a winging long left to the head from Sullivan. It hurt him, but he counters with a fine right to the mouth of Sullivan. John didn't seem to feel it. Sullivan takes a step forward. Braddock leaps backward. Sullivan does not follow. Back out to the center of the ring, more circling. Sullivan can fight this way all night. Braddock is the counter-puncher, but he cannot take one to get one from John L. Sullivan. Sullivan again leaps forward half a step, and he nails Braddock with a left hook to the air. Jim counters with a left to the mouth, tries a right to the head. Sullivan is under the blow, and Sullivan comes up swinging. Here is John L. with a smashing left to the midsection, a right to the body, a left to the body by Sullivan, and Braddock pedals back to the ropes. Sullivan moves after him, but not quickly enough, and Braddock comes bouncing off the hemp, misses a right, and moves out of Sullivan's range smartly. Braddock stops, comes up, now is nose to nose with the great John L. John has no throwing space, and Braddock neatly hooks a hard left to the body in close. That's Braddock's first score at Sullivan's framework. Here's a light right to the body by Braddock. Sullivan seems a little angry. He tears after Braddock, but Big Jim stands his ground, gets his hands wrapped around Sullivan, and holds on. Now Ruby Goldstein backs them off across the ring. Braddock is the aggressor now. He leaps at Sullivan. He drives a left to the head. There's a solid right to the head by Braddock. Jim fires a combination again. Same way, same target. Sullivan seems a little bewildered at Braddock's change to the offense. Braddock has scored very well with combinations, and Sullivan is on the receiving end of a fine combination thrower for the second time in his great career. But I don't think Braddock can hit as hard as Jim Corbett. Here's John L. Sullivan moving forward, driving a guard down for just a moment, and John L. powered through. Here's Sullivan with a roundhouse left to the head. Not too hard, but Braddock is backing off. He may see a storm brewing. Sullivan follows quickly. Here's a hard blast at the body by Sullivan. He takes a right to the body, lands with a left to the chin, tries to wrestle Braddock, but Jim will have none of it. He swings Sullivan around. He misses a short right over Sullivan's head. It's Wild with the left to the jaw, and both men here in round two have definitely lost their cool. They fall into a clinch. They wrestle along the ropes, and Mr. Braddock must be getting burned plenty. Sullivan seems happy at his work, but Braddock definitely wants out. Ruby Goldstein is called to the rescue, and what a job he's got. Moving John L. Sullivan around is like pushing a Sherman tank without anybody helping. Seconds only left in round two of this bout between John L. Sullivan and Jim Braddock, and there is the bell.
Both men look fresh. Neither one looks injured at this point. The first two rounds fairly even. Here's the bell, and here's God.
Okay, round three on the way, and a very even fight it's been. The surprise has been Sullivan's ability to look well against a fine boxer, and Braddock has shown a willingness to mix. As a matter of fact, is at the business of that right now. Jim shoots a left jab to the nose of Sullivan, misses the right cross over the head of his opponent. Sullivan lands a left to the head of Braddock, but is too slow with a right, and Braddock blocks it easily. Sullivan pounds the head again as Braddock seemed to be hurt just a little bit. Sullivan comes right back with a straight right to the face of Braddock. Sullivan rips the body with the left, misses wildly as Braddock backs off and to the left. Sullivan is off balance. Braddock may be able to take advantage. No, he cannot. Sullivan recovers in time and backs to a corner and seems to be saying, "Come on over, Jim. The water is fine." Now Sullivan moves out, tries to burrow his head into Braddock's shoulder, but Jim drives an uppercut to the heart. He has landed every one of those. Sullivan still trying to bull Braddock against the ropes. 1 minute gone in round three. Braddock ties his hands down at the elbow, and they are knotted real tight. It is hard to understand, as Ruby Goldstein pries them apart, why Braddock has not brought his fine jab into play. It's one of the best in the business, but he seems more intent on having both hands ready for Sullivan's billy-goating at short range. Here's Braddock driving a straight right to the body, but he takes a smashing left on the mouth and turn. That hurt. Sullivan wings another left to the head. Braddock feebly throws a light right to the body, nearly off balance as he dives. Sullivan takes two quick steps into Braddock, takes a left to his body, but lands his own hard shot under the heart of Braddock. Braddock clinching. He wants a breather. Sullivan tagged him hard in the last moment or so. John L. Sullivan is working very hard to move Braddock to the ropes, but Braddock always uses the center of the ring beautifully. Although Braddock is hard for anyone to hit, Sullivan's power, though, makes the difference. Each blow he lands solidly gives him an easier target for the follow-up. Now in the center of the ring, Braddock definitely wants to box. Here he is going to the jab. He misses Sullivan, though, with two quick darting moves, and apparently he is a little off his timing. Now, Braddock lands a quick left to the head of Sullivan. It's a light blow. He hooks another left to the head, also without too much power. And here drives a solid right to the body of Sullivan. Sullivan was busy watching the fireworks at his head, and Braddock simply lowered his sights. Now out in the center of the ring, they both miss lefts over the head. Sullivan, though, now lands a left to the head. Is blocked as he comes back with a right to the body, and Braddock taps his gloves. Circles. He has apparently had enough of this round. We can hear his corner shouting the time remaining, which happened to be seconds. Sullivan, a little slower, stalks Braddock. Braddock cocks his left as he suddenly comes to a halt. Sullivan doesn't follow. They clinch as Sullivan tried to come in close for a shot at the midsection, but his hands are pounded down by Braddock at the bell.
Well, Sullivan picked up the first round on our scorecard in the last round, and we'll see what's coming up. There's the bell, and here's God.
Right, round four. John L. Sullivan ambles out to ring center. Braddock gets there even more slowly. Braddock dances up and down. There's a left lead that is short by Braddock. Sullivan rips a right to the body. Jim blocks, dances back, leans backward from a hard left thrown at the head, backs off, comes in dancing again. Spars with Sullivan now, who weaves his hands so they look like big clubs being flourished. About 30 seconds gone, round four. Braddock is the taller, legs quite thin, but evenly developed. He is leg light for a big man. Sullivan takes a short step into Braddock and with an overhand motion plows a hard left to the head, and another left lands on the shoulder. Braddock again leans far back on his hips as Sullivan veers in. And again with head buried, tries a left to the head. Braddock makes him miss. Braddock dances to the left, weaves his head slightly, and they're in a clinch. Sullivan trying to punish Jim at the ribs, but it's no go because the old pro knows how to hold things cool. Ruby Goldstein has a little trouble pulling Sullivan off Braddock that time. Here's Braddock now in a little faster gear, dancing to the side. He hooks to Sullivan's head, misses a right to the body. Here's a light left jab by Jim. 2 more jabs to the mouth, all light by Braddock. And Sullivan did not even try to defend against them. They move around now in ring center, and action apparently is slowed for the moment. Braddock now going to that jab, which is a beauty. And a beauty does land on John L's nose. His legs tried to move him back out of Braddock's range, but couldn't do it for him. Sullivan again caught flat-footed as Braddock leaps forward with a left jab to the head, as he did often against Max Baer. Only partly landed, though. Now he tries to bring a right up under the heart, but Sullivan catches the hand, and once more the wrestlers have taken over at Miami Convention Hall. The body holds are there, the half-Nelsons, they're all there. Goldstein moves to the tango as they break. Sullivan opens up again. Here is a hard left to the nose of Braddock. John really pushed it back for him. 1 minute remaining in round 4. Braddock was just beginning a left jab when Sullivan was at the nose. Sullivan now drives a straight right for Jim's head. He lands it neatly. The left was harder. Braddock gives ground. He holds Sullivan's thrust forward to a vain attempt as he sends up a stinging jab to the mouth of Big John and follows immediately with another left jab to the same place. Here goes Sullivan again. A right clobbers the head of Braddock as he holds John at the shoulder. Sullivan puts a right to the body, but Braddock moves slightly, and it skids around his torso. Braddock steps back, cocks his hand, thinks, whacks the head with the left hand, tries another hard left for the head of Sullivan, who now falls into Braddock, and the blow is just a grazing one, but the clinch is a tight one. Braddock looked around the time to see where the ropes were. About 10 seconds remaining in round 4. Now they weave off across the ring. Sullivan's legs powerful looking. Sullivan looks brawny. He doesn't have the collegiate athlete look with the suppressed hip line, but you won't find skin that hasn't got muscle on it. There's the bell.
Our scorecard puts round 4 over on John L's side, but Braddock doesn't look hurt at the bell.
Round 5 coming up. Braddock went to the jab the last round, and now it's an absolute necessity. His face is beginning to look jelly-like at the left side. Braddock speeds into Sullivan, who is held at bay as he tries to wind up for the head. Braddock has his head straight up. Among modern fighters, he sports a very classic stance. Braddock feints a right at the body of John L., but sends a looping left to the head of Sullivan. He catches Sullivan's counter at the shoulder blade. He sends a smashing right hard to the midsection, then dances back. Braddock outboxed and out-cuted the great John L. that time. Shades of Jim Corbett, Sullivan must be saying with sadness. Out at the center of the ring, Sullivan takes a breath, circles slowly with Braddock as Braddock weaves a left hand tauntingly in his face. Braddock shoots the left jab to the mouth. Sullivan partly gets away from it, jerking his head slightly. Jim pulls in, ties the great John L. at the elbows, and Ruby Goldstein, with a great flourish, hurries to the huddle. Just a tap at Braddock's elbow breaks the knot. Sullivan now on the flats of his feet again at the center of the ring, turning now with left toe as pivot, brandishes the left, cocks the right, but it's Braddock climbing through the defense with a left jab landed at the nose of Sullivan, and once more Braddock drives like a tank for the midsection of Sullivan and dynamites him there at the heart. Sullivan grabs for Braddock's neck, which is now some 2 inches above him, and Sullivan again takes a shattering right at the body. His ability to take those shots must definitely be puzzling Braddock. Jim scrambles back from Sullivan's attempt to bear hug him and hold on. And by the way, taking those shots as Sullivan is certainly puzzling everyone else here. Sullivan wrestles again, and this time he has Braddock schneidered. So here goes the call for Ruby Goldstein once more to break it up at the neutral corner, just to the left of my microphone. Jim Braddock has shown us some of his famed boxing skill this round. The use of the feint, the weave, the left draw, the counter. 1 minute remaining in round 5. He often says that he learned most of it from his loss to Tommy Loughran for the light heavyweight title. Here is Sullivan sneaking a right to Braddock's head as they break. No real power, though. Braddock was drawing the shot and missed the signals. Sullivan does not telegraph his straight shots as he does his hooks. There's a left hook to the head landed by Sullivan, a right to the head is nullified slightly as Braddock was pulling back from it. Now Braddock uncorks the right. It lands with a thud on Sullivan's head, but Jim dances out of the range as Sullivan swings wildly. Braddock in again, a left to the mouth, a left hook to the head, and Braddock, hurrying for the door once more, rams home a hard right under the heart of Sullivan. Seconds remaining in this round. Braddock has so far beautifully defended the family beauty, and Sullivan has not messed his place anymore this round. And amazingly, Braddock did not take a single shot at the body. Seconds only remaining in round 5. The bell should sound in a moment. They're at the center of the ring. Sullivan looking frustrated. He throws a light left and right at Braddock's head at the bell.
Jimmy Braddock clearly scored the points for himself in round 5, but neither man looks hurt as we get ready to go into 6, and here's Guy.
Right, Murray Warner, and round 6 should be a beauty. Coming up, Braddock steps out confidently, feints the left hand. Sullivan winds up, throws hard at the body. Braddock leaps back, leaps in, and hooks a blustering right and left to John L's head. And Sullivan is mad. Here he is with all throttles open. A left hook high on the head of Braddock. A right to the body by John L. He takes a flicking left on the mouth and turn, and he wings hard with both hands, coming back wildly and hard. He is missing a lot as Braddock steps in to the side and out. Braddock catches a left that must have bruised his forearm, though. His right hand was swinging at Sullivan. Sullivan leaps at Braddock, lands a left to the head, another left to the head, both lighter than usual. He is missing Braddock's bruised face, though. Jim wants desperately to stem the hurricane at his head. Meantime, has to take severe punishment at the ribs as they wrestle into a corner, and that's just what Sullivan wants all night long. A minute gone by in round 6. This brawler will not let Braddock hold his arm, and he is buried inside Braddock's midsection, trying to get loose for a shot, and the crowd loves this kind of Sullivan Donnybrooking. Boy, Ruby Goldstein can get hurt getting into that melee. He really is looking for an opening. Now he finally has pried Braddock free, and as Jim dances back, Burly John L. once more. Brother, Braddock's head nearly ripped off as Sullivan really found the radar that time. Braddock wobbling, Braddock holding. It must have hurt. The crowd wants John L. to finish it. Sullivan is squirming as Braddock hangs onto him and hangs onto the ropes at the same time. Goldstein, the referee, now gets him apart, and Braddock is weary. Now, here's Braddock going portside. Here are 2 left jabs to the mouth of John L. Sullivan. Braddock takes a right to the body in turn, not too tough that time, and hooks his own left to the head of John L. Lands again, same place. Sullivan stalking Braddock across the ring with 1 minute showing on the clock. Right hand is cocked. Braddock has both hands up at his face, fists screwed down tightly together. Braddock taunts John L. with lefts to the face. Here is a straight right to the face of Sullivan. And Sullivan pops a right to the body, stops, ignores a left to the chops, and lands home a hard right to Braddock's midsection. Sullivan was his own hurricane self in the beginning of the round, and one remembers how he drove the fine Canadian champion Jack Stewart right out of the ring in that fight. Sullivan once more, a right to the body by Sullivan. He takes 2 more jabs on the mouth, full power, and again Braddock rips a straight right to the head. Braddock can hit. He floored Joe Louis, but if he can hit, Sullivan hasn't been told so in the ring tonight. He has taken unbridled Braddock power and withstood it all. Here is a right over the ropes as Sullivan tries to get free, and Braddock may be suffering a beating at the arms, sustaining Sullivan inside. Sullivan is mad. He is mad and trying to pull Braddock off his feet, and maybe the arms out of Braddock's sockets. The bell should sound in seconds. There it goes to the end of the round.
Sullivan clearly taking the last round. Round 7 coming up. Braddock a little battered. There's the bell, and here's Guy LeBeau.
Righto, and here we go in round 7. And by the way, a critical round for Braddock, as I'll explain in just a moment. Here is Sullivan running across the ring to light the fire early. Here is a torrent left hook to the head of Braddock, a right to Braddock's body. Braddock gets a soft hook into the head, but his head is volleyed back and forth as Sullivan wings him hard with both hands at the temple. Braddock dances back, shoots a left jab to the mouth. Sullivan leaps at him, and brother, he missed Braddock in. Look out, he may cut through the ropes. No, he's okay, but 2 rows of ringside press people wound up in the grandstand. Man, Sullivan nearly left Miami on that flight. Braddock is back at ring center. Everything is cool again. Sullivan making his way back, half smiling, half scowling. Over a lifetime record, Sullivan's opponents have lasted 6.2 rounds. This is the 7th, so it's critical for Braddock. John L. Sullivan touches Braddock at the gloves. Here's a wild right to the shoulder, but he lands the next one. But look out! Boom, boom! A beautiful 1-2 at the head by Braddock. Sullivan stopped dead in his tracks, but more in confusion. Can't you even hurt this guy? Braddock's 1-2 combination is a beautiful sight to behold. Sullivan hooks a good left to the head. Once more, jams a right to the midsection of Braddock. And say this because you must. Sullivan has enormous staying power, and Braddock's hard-hitting. Fuss him, fury him, but you don't have to call for a doctor. About a minute gone by, or a minute remaining, I should say. Braddock dances up and down, taps a right to the body, lets Sullivan swing at the head. Braddock's face looks better now. Braddock again pops a right to the chest, not too hard. Here's Sullivan with a right to the body, and man, there's that Braddock zap to the head again. A beautiful 1-2, but Sullivan shakes it off, leaps off his feet at Braddock, hooks a left to the head, another left to the head by Sullivan, a left and right to the mouth of Braddock, and Braddock is weaving all over the place. Now, back a few steps, he moves out in a hurry, weaving from a wild left, and now Braddock vainly throws his own flickering jab to the left of the face of John L. And these Irishmen really love to fight, don't they? Sullivan back off to the center of the ring and taking a breath, apparently pacing himself better than he did against Jim Corbett, who cut him up viciously. Braddock, of course, has the knives in his gloves too, but apparently not the power of a Jim Corbett. Now they're clinching in the far corner across the ring. Braddock sends a light right inside as they break. Sullivan hooks a hard left and right to the head. Again, back with a hard left and right to the head of Braddock. Braddock counters with a straight right to the mouth of Sullivan. That must have stung. Sullivan went for the hands. He's got both, and he tied Braddock up in a neutral punch. Ruby Goldstein hustling over. About 20 seconds remaining in this round. Sullivan winging at the body again at the break. Braddock blocks one, blocks another, cocks his own right, but Sullivan powers a right to the body, which was eased just a little bit as Braddock moved to his right. There's the bell.
Neither fighter's been cut to this point, although Braddock shows large red splotches around the body and on the side of his face. The bell, and here's Guy LeBeau.
Thank you very much, and here comes round 8. And this has been, at least it seems to me, an amazingly even fight, or at least seems to be. It's John L. Sullivan and Jim Braddock, the Cinderella Man, in the second fight of this great tournament computerized. Jim is dancing up and down around Sullivan. Here's a left jab to the nose by Braddock, and he comes right back with 2 flicking left jabs right to the nose. 2 more left jabs to the nose, 1 missing. Sullivan just stalking forward. Left hand half extended, right hand clenched at the waist. Sullivan is perfectly comfortable with the gloves now, although he first used them with Jim Corbett. Braddock ducks, tries to fire a right to the body, but takes a thump on the head from Sullivan's right hand and scrambles backward. Here's Sullivan with a hard left to the head, a right to the head by Sullivan, a left hook to the ear by John L. Sullivan, but all in exchange for a straight right to the mouth by Braddock. But Sullivan whips 2 rights to the head as they clinch right over the microphone. Now they're trying to break the clinch in their own stead, but they need help from Ruby Goldstein, who comes to break up the 2 perspiring men. Sullivan's blows are thrown with a dull, thumping sound. At the same time, Braddock's seem to have snap and zing, but apparently not enough to cut Sullivan as Jim Corbett did. Here's a pretty exchange just overhead. Sullivan wings 2 rights to the body, and there is a torrid overhand left to the head of Braddock. Braddock dancing away on 1 foot, hooks a good left to the jaw, and all off balance, and lands one likely a moment later. Sullivan wants to mix in close some more. He rushes at Braddock. Braddock ties him up. 1 hand stays free, though, and Sullivan gets a chance to pummel the ribs, which are getting redder all the time. Braddock now slips his other hand down, and Sullivan is in chains. They're in a clinch, and they're calling for Ruby Goldstein. Ruby hustles across the ring to get in between the 2 giants, and he's having a little trouble breaking them up. Now out at the center of the ring with 1 minute remaining. Sullivan leaps right back to the clinch. He liked working on Braddock's ribs at short quarters, apparently, but they're tied up just as quickly. And look at this. Braddock is being towed along the ropes by John L. Guess it's just another strange John L. weapon. I thought I had seen them all, and perhaps I now have. Sullivan, who through most of his career has brawled lustily in the ring, certainly is doing some of that tonight. On the break, Braddock is holding both hands on Sullivan's hands, sort of lifts himself backward, giving himself time to get completely free so he won't get a sneaky punch in. Sullivan barrels right through. Here's a right to the body, swung roundhouse by Sullivan. A left to the head by Sullivan. Braddock, though, hooks a left and right to the nose once more. Braddock sprays Sullivan with a left and right to the nose again. Sullivan takes a step to the right, and as he does, Braddock moves right along with him. Sullivan rips a bomb to the head of Braddock. There was a left and right to the head of Braddock. Braddock lands a right left on the nose, takes a flickering left at the head, but gets two good lefts in at the head of Sullivan at the bell.
Both these men have taken real hard shots at various times, but neither one shows any injury at this point. The bell, and here's Guilebo.
Jim Braddock's opponents over a lifetime have gone a distance of nearly 9 rounds, so this is the critical ninth for John L., who has only knocked down twice in his career. Currently, John L. is immediately at the offense. He throws a right at Braddock's body. Jim parries, steps inside, but his own right is blocked at the arm. Sullivan holds Braddock close, whips a free left hand around the body, but Braddock is wriggling and wriggling and wriggling. Braddock jams a right to the body of Sullivan in close. Still, Sullivan holds on. Jim is now caught at the neck, at the hand, at the elbow crook, and Braddock wants distance. But Sullivan holds and mauls and holds and mauls, and here comes Ruby Goldstein finally getting inside. In case you just joined us, this is the second great tournament fight. John L. Sullivan meeting Jim Braddock, two ex-great champions. The match appears to be even, but it's only the ninth. Sullivan is yanked back by Goldstein all the way to the center of the ring. Braddock's midsection, I note, is sunburned red. Jim is lightly skinned anyway, and Sullivan's brawling has freckled Braddock in large splotches. Now Sullivan standing wide of foot, wings a hard right to the head. Braddock dancing back, jabs at the mouth, lands. Sullivan follows, is again stabbed with a lightning jab to the mouth. Sullivan moves to the right slowly, has a semblance of a feint with the right, cocks the left, now just taps Braddock's extended left with it, and Sullivan scores with a pretty hook to the right side of Braddock's face. Sullivan drives a tough shot to Braddock's body, and Braddock retaliates with a straight right to Sullivan's head. A light blow. Going out of range, Braddock again lands a right to the chest of the smaller man. Now Braddock is back in. He hooks a left to the head, a right to the head by Braddock. Then Braddock, before Sullivan can get set, shoots a right to the head. It's a bit high, but Sullivan has moved back from it, and it must have tagged him or something is bothering him. Here's Sullivan coming back in with a real bomb to the body of Braddock. Sullivan's shorter height places him in a body striking range with tall Jim Braddock, who has more than 3 inches on John L. Braddock takes a hard left to the head, another left to the head, and all this while working his own left to the nose and right to the ear of Sullivan. Sullivan, a hard straight right to the head. Every once in a while, Braddock becomes careless, and Sullivan rips the straight right to its target. Now Braddock brings in his own left to the nose and right to the head once more. Braddock tears in with that combination again, but under the right cross, look at this. John L. rips the hard, good right to the body with 30 seconds remaining, and Braddock is definitely slow. Braddock has not commanded the fight as the boxer he is should. But on the other hand, Sullivan sometimes landing solidly, as Braddock has the big, solid body to pillow the pain. Braddock ties Sullivan to the ropes virtually as they wrestle from one side to the other, and Sullivan could definitely be including the needless brawling in his battle plan. Buddy, the bully boy, knows his street fighting, no doubt about that. Seconds remaining, there's the bell.
Sullivan holding a slight edge, although neither man has been badly hurt up to this point. There's the bell for round 10. Here's Guy.
Right, here goes round 10. Both men have outlived each other's opponents thus far, and this match has been a fine one. Action in spurts, but Sullivan is superior to the Sullivan of the Corbett fight, and Braddock just can't hurt him. Here's Braddock beginning. He tries a left to the head, misses. Jim is in close now and brings up a left uppercut sharply to Sullivan's nose. Sullivan is roughhousing inside. Braddock wrestling with the smaller giant. He brings that left up again to the face of Sullivan. That jammed his nose, and Sullivan blinked. Sullivan pulls back, but he's fooling Braddock. He comes in quickly again, body turned inward, drives a right to the body. It was not at full power. Sullivan could not drive his shoulder into the blow. Braddock hooks his own left to the belly of Sullivan, and Sullivan again scores that right to the body, but again not a hard blow. They tie each other up, and Sullivan is scrambling, and I mean, is Ruby Goldstein breaking into the huddle, and he has a little trouble pulling them apart again. Whoops! They're suspicious again and holding at ring center. This time, Braddock tied the knot. Apparently, Big Jim wants thinking time. He's looking at his corner, waiting to get the word. Now, Braddock backs up. He may have gotten the tone. Braddock stabs Sullivan with a left to the mouth. A left jab to the nose by Braddock. Another left to the nose by Big Jim. Sullivan flailing and missing. And look at this. Big John is spilling blood. Braddock has busted up his beak. No doubt about that. Braddock rips in again. Here's that straight left to the head. A left to the nose, and it continues to spill blood. And Braddock crosses the right, which lands just under the shoulder bone. Sullivan wipes the nose. It could be broken. That's what I'm thinking. It could be broken. Braddock jammed it hard early in the round. Braddock circling. He wants more of that nose. He'll have to try to get it. Once again, Sullivan makes Braddock suffer, going under his left to drive his own powerful right to the heart. Braddock is hurt by that right, and another right that lands right on the spot. And Braddock is trying for the clinch. Sullivan, still bleeding, nails Braddock with a left and right to the head. Braddock returns a left hook to the head, darts back from the right, draws the body, misses a left to the face of Sullivan. Sullivan rushes at him and covers him with those big bruising arms, and they're tied up again just across the ring. But what a beautiful exchange. Braddock was definitely hurt. He appears better now. I think he was a bit sick from the body blows. Many are surprised anyway that Braddock is still around, and many are surprised that Sullivan does have a battle plan that he unravels from time to time. They're still trying to get their arms free. Ruby Goldstein in the middle of the huddle, and I'm now quite sure that he is looking at the nose of John L. Sullivan, thinking it may be broken. Sullivan backs off, winging left and right to the head. Braddock is back in again with a jab to the mouth, a left to the body. Braddock now is very obedient to his corner. They must have given him the left jab sign. Seconds remaining. Now, Braddock scores a couple of times, but in this brawling business, he should avoid Sullivan like a plague. Inside, Sullivan rips the body with lefts and rights at the bell.
Sullivan's seconds, Joe Goss and Billy Madden, have the bleeding stopped. They're looking now back towards Sullivan at the bell.
Well, they've patched Sullivan's nose up, it looks like, from here, but his seconds were working hard right to the bell. Braddock a little weary, looking as he comes out for the 11th round. He opens with a left jab right on the nose of Sullivan, and immediately it enrages Big John L., who grabs Braddock's hand, holds tight at the left arm as if he wants to break it off. And Braddock here wildly swinging the free glove as he tries to break his hand loose. And listen to that crowd. Sullivan's still hanging on to that arm. Now he also seems to want Braddock's neck. He whistles a long left around Jim's collar. He was wild, and Braddock finally tears loose. Braddock jabs at the nose, misses, jabs again, misses again, backs off, sends a right to the body of Sullivan, not hard, and Sullivan rips a mean-looking right to Braddock's heart. He tries for it again, and Jim dances away out of range. Here's Braddock feinting with the left, dancing around Sullivan. Sullivan is slower this round so far anyway. He moves to the left. Braddock goes with him. Sullivan makes Braddock walk into a wicked left to the head and straight right, immediately thrown to the face. Jim shakes at the knees and takes cover immediately. Back out of the center of the ring. Braddock jabs at Sullivan, moves back out of range. Sullivan went this way and his right went that way in the previous big exchange. Braddock now dancing around, misses a right to the head, ducks under a whistling left to his head, lands softly at the midsection, takes a left to the mouth. Sullivan's nose appears fine, I can report that. It suffered the first real cut of the fight. Sullivan partially lands on Braddock's head with a thumping right. He has not successfully pursued his mashing of Braddock's face since earlier in the round. Sullivan is only modestly accurate in his fighting, and his forte is merely hip, hip, hip. Where are the other guys? Then and out. Now they are knotted up right over my microphone. Braddock looks tired. This is the 11th, and about a minute left. Braddock looking in his corner again. Joe Gould, his manager, flashing signs. Braddock is here because of the great management of Joe Gould, partially, and Big Jim has become known as Abe's Irish Rose. But John L. is a bit Irish, too, as you know. Now, Braddock blocks a right to his body, jabs at the nose of Sullivan, blocks lefts and rights at the body, jabs again at Sullivan. But Bully Boy John flashes a hard left to the head of Jim Braddock, and Braddock has to give ground. Oh, look out! John L. nearly fell over Braddock's big feet. Now everybody's cool again. They're out at the center of the ring. Here's the long left again, flicked at Sullivan. Sullivan follows with both hands flying. Jim Braddock was dancing around the ring. Rocked Sullivan's body, ducks smartly under a bristling right. But Sullivan nails him hard on the head and rips the other hand of Braddock's nose. And those blows hurt. Now they're sparring around in the center of the ring, and Braddock seems to enjoy the break he's getting for the moment. Braddock simply has to come on and score decisively to overcome the hard hitting of Sullivan. Braddock tags Sullivan a light left to the body, and Sullivan shoots a left to the head, misses, and once again trips over Braddock's extended feet, and the crowd loves it at the bell.
Round 11 was decisively John L. Sullivan's, and according to our scorecard, puts him firmly ahead for the fight. Isabel and Guilebo.
Okay, round 12, and we hope that you're scoring the fight, fans. Braddock, weary at the end of round 11, was showered with water during the intermission, and he is drenched as he comes out. But there's plenty of determination and vitality. Sullivan moves out, but Braddock draws a bead with his left hand and scores with a hard left to Sullivan's face. A left in the mouth by Braddock. He dances away, leads him with a straight left jab to the mouth. Sullivan counters with a light right to the body, and Sullivan takes a vicious right cross to the mouth from Jim Braddock. Braddock dancing up and down, swiftly jabs a left to the mouth, closes with Sullivan, drives both his fists downward, and moving away, rips the hard with a mean uppercut with the right hand. Braddock looks beautiful. His corner may have told him to get going, as he may be behind Sullivan on points. Here's Sullivan, though, scoring heavily with a jolting left to the head of Braddock, and he shakes Jim with a following right to the head. But Braddock shakes off the pain, gets moving, dances to the left, pulls a lead from Sullivan, and again lands that educated jab on the mouth of Sullivan. Another left to Sullivan's face. Sullivan is bleeding, and this time it's his mouth. Braddock dancing to Sullivan's right. Now blocks a right to the body, parries a left at the head, blocks two hard rights to the body, takes a left hard to the head, but is right back with a left to the mouth, and man, what a shot! Here's a right thrust to the head. Sullivan grabs for Braddock. He can't find him, and he goes down. Was it a trip, a real knockdown? Apparently a knockdown, because Goldstein is counting over there at the neutral corner, but he'll be up at the count of 8. He's okay. 7, 8, and what a surprise! Sullivan knocked down for the third time only in his career, and by Jim Braddock. And now his gloves are being wiped off, and they are resuming at the center of the ring. What a surprise! Jim leans forward, feinting a left, arches back as Sullivan misses the body. He's okay. He may have tripped. At any rate, it was a combination trip and knockdown. Sullivan again misses the body. Braddock is having a great round nevertheless. Here's Jim at short range, looking an uppercut to the midsection again. Sullivan lands a partially blocked left to the head. Jim grabs Sullivan around the waist to stop that left coming up again. And man, Sullivan just pushed Braddock clear across the ring and nearly off his feet. Braddock regains his balance now, and he seems mad, and I mean mad. I can hear his corner shouting, jab, 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 and Jim is mad but obeys. Here is Braddock at the neutral corner now with Sullivan back in there, jabbing a left to the mouth, and Sullivan a hard right cross to the nose. Sullivan bleeding at the mouth. He wants to bear hug Braddock, but Braddock lets Sullivan off the ropes. He wants none of that, and John grapples with Braddock near the center and charges him back to the corner. But again, they're out in the center of the ring. Again, Sullivan charges Braddock over the ropes, and Braddock's head is weaving around over the rope strands just over our microphone, making Sullivan miss with lefts and rights. He again turns Sullivan, and here's Braddock again, sweeping him with the left jab, right cross, left jab, right cross, all landing at John L. Sullivan, who is bleeding at the bell.
Jimmy Braddock sitting in his corner, big grin on his face as he looks over towards Sullivan, where the cut men have stopped the bleeding. There's the bell, and here's Guy LeBeau.
Braddock's corner may have told him to go out and get even in the fight, and Braddock sure had a beautiful round, and now he can tell his kids he knocked John L. down. Sullivan and Braddock at ring center, Ruby Goldstein circling with the two big men and beautifully handling his chores, I believe. Braddock has drawn blood twice, remember. Now he tries a left to the head, lands lightly. Sullivan hooks a right to the body. He is blocked as he tries the body again. Sullivan backs off, takes a jab on the mouth, which is bleeding slightly. He tries a hard straight right to the body of Braddock. It hurts Jim. He backs off for just a moment and now comes forward. Sullivan gets good power in that straight shot. Braddock feints, rams home a good hook to the head, is sharp with the cross, dances off to his right. Sullivan advances, throwing at the head, but Braddock is already in another county. Man, he moves fast. Braddock has been one of the game's most mysteriously in-and-out fighters. When he's good, very good, and when bad, very bad. But tonight, he's up for the big show, definitely. Sullivan wants Braddock at the ropes now, and he's calling for him, and here he is, bullying him across the ropes because he can't get him to come over. Braddock grabs at the waist. Sullivan chops a right and left at the midsection while pushing Braddock around, and that's got the call for some pushing. Braddock lowers the attack, and here is Sullivan taking a good right to the body that makes him wince. Sullivan lands his own light hook to the head. Braddock pulls his jabs out again, and here John L. takes a booming 1-2 to the mouth, another left on the nose, two stinging jabs to the mouth, and Sullivan has to cover up quickly. Now he darts off again, pushing into Braddock, and again bullying him across the ring. Sullivan backs off once Braddock is off the ropes, and he meets Braddock with a crashing right under the heart. Sullivan has been successful all night with that straight right to the body. Sullivan back again, and now lands a mean hook to the head and trying another hook to the head. Misses. 3 or 4 rights and lefts at Braddock's head. Miss. And Sullivan falls into a clinch, mostly to keep his balance. 1 minute remaining in this round. Braddock helps Ruby Goldstein break the stalemate. John L. wrestles in close, and Braddock must be muscle worried. He pops a short right to the kidney, does Braddock, and in a flash, he moves out a left jab and right cross to the head of Sullivan. Braddock moves forward very quickly, blocks the right to the body. He's trying to fight in close, actually, and that is surprising. But then Braddock is always surprising. The night he won the title from Bayer, he was a 10-1 underdog with an ambulance waiting at the arena to cart him away, just in case. Sullivan lands a right to the body. Jim dances to his left. Braddock lands 2 left jabs to the face, blocks another right at the midsection, weaves to his left, feints a left. Sullivan trying to set Braddock up for a KO, but Braddock will not accommodate him. Braddock gets a left into the nose, a left to the head, a bristling shot to the body. In close, Sullivan pumps at the body, but Braddock blocks everything, wrestles away from Sullivan, and once more rips a good left to the head, a solid cross that Sullivan catches on the eye. Sullivan lands a light left to the body, and once more punishes the Cinderella Man at the bell.
Sullivan's cut men have successfully used the time between rounds to stem the bleeding. Here's the bell, and here's Guy.
Okay, Murray, round 14, and few thought that Jim Braddock would be around this late, and that includes your commentator. Both men are tired, though, it seems, of saving for the final round. They move out very slowly. Sullivan misses an overhand left to the head. He bulls into Braddock like Braddock was a matador. He tries to gore him. Braddock now tries to push him off, Sullivan ramming the top of his head around Braddock's chin. Braddock is on the ropes, and it looks a little odd to see this tall athlete being flung around by this bustling, brawny, scowling, littler muscle man. But it's John L. Sullivan, who offers to lick any man in the house any time. Sullivan now stalks Braddock again as they break at the ropes. Sullivan leaps about a foot to land a left to the head, and Braddock counters with 2 smart lefts to the mouth, where Sullivan has been bleeding. Sullivan the aggressor, though, as he has been all through this fight. Here he is, winging, and Braddock blocks a left to the head, a right to the ear, a left to the head. Sullivan scores with a straight right to the head, a light left to the head by Sullivan, and Braddock has to hang on to weather the storm again. Sullivan now, in turn, wants out of the clinch. It wasn't too tight a clinch. John L. is the wildest man the ring has ever seen, with the exception of Jack Dempsey, and when he smells kill, it's kill he wants. Braddock goes to the defense again. He has to. He blocks a right to the midsection, parries a left at the shoulder, rips his own left to the nose of Sullivan. Another left smashes Sullivan's face, and dancing out of range, Braddock wraps the body smartly but lightly. Sullivan's nose is bleeding red again. Sullivan moves in again, though, ignoring the blood, trying a right to the head. Braddock holds Sullivan's hand, and with his other hand, Sullivan is trying to rake the side of Braddock. Braddock gives him no target, though. Here is Big Jim turning inside very well. He has his own uppercut blocked, but he manages to jab twice. He lands twice at the Sullivan nose and moves off again beautifully. The nose continues to drop red. Sullivan moves after him, drawing wildly at the head of the face. Missing, being blocked. He stops about halfway and he seems to say, "Come on, Jim. Let's have a fight or something." But Braddock is out in the center of the ring where he likes it as home. Braddock dances up and down, flicks his left, misses. About a minute remains in the 14th round. Sullivan has the left hand out now at ring center. He turns it around onto Braddock's big, broad face. Then suddenly rips a hard left to the cheek of Braddock, and Braddock's knees buckle. Sullivan rushes to bomb the body, but he can't find the target. Braddock is covered quickly and beautifully, and Braddock now looks for time. He tries and does tie Sullivan to the clinch. Many wonder whether Sullivan is overrated as a hard belter or is Braddock underrated. But just ask yourself, who has knocked Braddock out? And the answer is just two guys in a career of 85 fights. Once again, out in the center of the ring with just seconds remaining, Braddock leaps in, lands the jab. Sullivan is under him, missing the body, and then Braddock lands a straight right, flush on the mouth of Sullivan. Sullivan nearly tripping, scores with a left to the head. Sullivan is awkward, but he is stronger than the strongest tree, you better believe it.
Both fighters on their feet, waiting for the bell as this is it, the nitty-gritty, the big one coming up. Here's the bell, and here's Guy.
Round 15, and only one man can go to the next round of this computerized tourney, and we'll see who that is pretty soon. Sullivan is out of his corner quickly. He seems to dominate the ring. The fight very close. Sullivan misses a wild swing to the head, hitches his trunk somewhat sheepishly. Braddock is at respectful distance. Here's Braddock feinting with the left hand. He lands a light jab to the nose. Sullivan again moves forward. He wraps the body of Braddock. Sullivan, though he knows Braddock is more vulnerable to the head, still has worked harder on the body. Once again, Sullivan leaping at Braddock. There goes his left hand around Braddock's neck, and simultaneously his right is buried deep in Braddock's side. Again, he rips the right to Braddock's side, and Braddock has to tie him up. Ruby Goldstein, the third man in the ring, who has done a splendid job, sweating as our both fighters, walks between them. Braddock is drenched with water. Sullivan drenched with perspiration. Here's Braddock dancing away in the center of the ring, drawing Sullivan's wild swing at his head. Braddock misses a jab to the mouth, misses another, misses the body. Big Jim playing it cautiously at long range. But now he steps in, he steps out. He lands a jab to the nose. But Sullivan climbs right up his chest. He whacks Braddock's head hard with a left hand. Another rocking right to the head of Braddock, and again a powerful left to Braddock's face, and again that face is mash-looking as it was earlier in the fight. In the second minute of this round, Braddock leaps forward, thrusts a hard left jab to Sully's head, and there's a fine right cross coming out by Braddock. But he gets his ear thumped again. As again, Sullivan wails at the head with both hands. Sullivan, now openly disdainful, takes a 1-2 shot to the head from Braddock. Sullivan virtually shrugs in arrogance and rushes to close and pummel the back of Braddock's head. Sullivan is the aggressor. He has been so for nearly 15 rounds, but he has bled from Braddock's stinging, cutting shots, and he was down once. Sullivan hustles Braddock to the ropes, nails him with a short uppercut to the mouth, rips a hard left to the head. About a minute left to go in this 15th and final round, and Braddock wavered under that one, and Jim hangs on to the Boston strong boy. Two of the most popular Irishmen sports has ever known are right here before me now. Sullivan, of course, has been immortalized in his own time. Seconds only remain. Braddock looking to ride out the 15th. He lands a soft left lead to the eye of Sullivan, and as Sullivan comes in winging, Braddock takes aim and fires a terrific body smash, which even the great John L. must have felt. He comes up short as if spiked. Braddock again fires at the body as Sullivan misses a right over his head, but Sullivan is on balance and now has his target well sighted. Braddock takes a terrific pounding to the face and ears as Sullivan is closing with a wail of a flurry. Braddock throws a left at the ear, a left hook to the chin by Braddock, but now Sullivan is bombing with left and right. Sullivan puts a right to the side. Sullivan, meanwhile, takes left hook, right cross, left hook, right cross from Braddock, all right. This crowd is on its collective feet. Sullivan is ramming the head of Braddock with lefts and rights, and you'll hear thunder at the bell in just a moment. Sullivan is still throwing at the bell. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. A beautiful fight that went 15 rounds and about no unexpected or two. James Braddock and John L. Sullivan. Sullivan, the aggressor, nearly throughout, but he was cut 3 times and down once. Of course, the big NCR 315 computer will make the decision, but these are some of the things it'll be thinking about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Paul Berman with the official announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, the NCR 315 computer scores 7 rounds for Sullivan, 3 rounds for Braddock, 5 rounds even. The winner, John L. Sullivan.
And as John L's hand is held up in victory, the last of the bare-knuckle champions faces one of the toughest men of his illustrious career, and he goes up against Jack Dempsey in the quarterfinal round.
And we'll be right back with our post-fight show. You know, Guy, after last week's 7-round knockout by Dempsey, I just had the feeling that we might come up with the same thing again tonight. And here we had 2 great hitters that just couldn't come up with the right combination to get the knockout.
You know, when you have a pair of punchers in the ring, they tend to have a little respect for the other guy's hitting power, and they're not too prone to gamble on taking a powerhouse counterpunch. Therefore, you can expect them to be careful of using the right hand unless it's a perfect chance. And obviously, not too many of those perfect chances came along tonight.
Well, one thing's certain, it appears you have to hit this John L. Sullivan with a hammer to slow him down.
And Sullivan's ability to take everything that Braddock had to offer had to prove out as a most discouraging thing for Jim. Can you imagine how you'd feel as a fighter if you landed your Sunday punch and it doesn't even seem to faze your opponent?
Well, I don't think we should ignore the fact that in the 12th round it appeared that Jimmy might have landed the magic combination. It would certainly bear out the opinion Joe Louis gave us that Jim could hit with the best of them.
Well, let's take a look at the fight as it actually went. The first 2 rounds I had fairly even, both men being very careful, and if anything, Braddock perhaps scoring with the harder blows. Then in the 3rd round, Sullivan scored, taking the round when he connected well to both head and body, forcing Braddock to take the defensive finally.
Well, Sullivan, I think, took the 5th round, too. He kept the pressure on Jimmy. And then in the 6th, Braddock registered with several tough shots to the body, slowing Sullivan's attack, but Sullivan came right back strongly in the 6th, hurting Jimmy. And again in the 7th round, Sullivan landed well to the head to take the round and kept Braddock on the defensive. The 8th round was fairly well balanced, with both men scoring to the head, but in the 9th, Sullivan racked up points with hard head punches that really kept Jim off balance.
Then you remember, Murray, that Braddock opened a cut on Sullivan's nose in the 10th round, but that didn't slow the Boston strong boy up. He kept things even by landing well to the body, and then in the 11th staggered Jim with headshots to take that round. But of course the 12th was all Jim Braddock's, as he landed his best combination of punches in the fight, scoring with both hands to the head, knocking Sullivan down, and at the same time opening another cut, this time Sullivan's mouth.
Well, Braddock took the 13th round, too, when he kept the pressure on Sullivan and landed well with both hands to the head and body. But though taking the round, Jimmy just wasn't able to drop Sullivan again.
The 14th round, fairly even, that's the way we have it. Sullivan's stamina showing as he rocked Jimmy while taking several good shots in return. And in the 15th, Sullivan all the way again, as the Cinderella man weathered tough going and knew it. Sullivan hooking well to the head and body as it closed.
Now, in a minute, we'll continue and take a look at next week's match. Guy, a lot of people have told me that they really enjoyed the backward look at the experts' predictions, particularly when so many of them seem to be wrong. The Las Vegas line set by Jimmy the Greek Snyder made Sullivan a 2-1 favorite over Braddock. And if you remember, Nat Fleischer at Ring Magazine said,
I don't think that a fight of that type, both in that prime, would have lasted more than possibly 3 or 4 rounds, with Sullivan the victor by a knockout.
We had 2 other experts who agreed with Fleischer, remember, aside from Jim Snyder. They were Rocky Marciano.
I would have to say Sullivan because of the many, many stories that I've heard about him, about his strength, about his punch, about his durability. Braddock was good, but I just can't picture him as that great.
And, of course, Jack Sharkey, the garrulous god from Epping, New Hampshire.
When you've got a fellow in there and you hit him your best punch, he says, if that's the best you can punch, kid, you better get yourself a reputation. What would happen to Braddock, or what would Braddock be thinking if he hit Sullivan with his best Sunday punch and Sullivan kept on coming?
So you see, Guy, all three of them, Marciano, Fleischer, and Sharkey, lean to the theory that Jimmy Braddock just couldn't hit hard enough to hurt John L.
And, of course, here tonight, it was John L. Sullivan coming up the big winner. And I'm really looking forward to the quarterfinals, which begin on November 6th. Jack Dempsey, the Manasseh Mauler, meets John L. Sullivan, and that ought to be a dandy.
And speaking of dandy matches, how about our bout for next week, putting huge Jess Willard into the ring with Joe Louis? How'd you like to be caught in the middle of that one, Guy?
No, thank you. But that would be like getting between two grizzly bears with a score to settle.
Well, first, let's take a look at Jess Willard. Big Jess is a virtual giant of a man. They called him the Potawatomi Giant. He's 6 foot 6 1/4 inches tall, the tallest man to ever hold the heavyweight title. His best punch was a good, solid right uppercut, and he had an effective long left jab. His 83-inch reach made that left jab his best defense. And Big Jess was only knocked down 11 times in his career, with 7 of those knockdowns occurring in the bloody battle with Jack Dempsey. Many people feel that Willard showed incredible bravery and gameness when he managed to last till the 4th round, even though he was knocked down 7 times in the 1st round and had his cheekbones smashed in that round. But Willard himself doesn't look at it that way.
You say I had courage. No, wasn't that at all. I was knocked out. He hit me with this well. You get hit on it, like taking an axe and hitting you, knocking you out. Do you call that courage? I wouldn't have stayed in there and got beat up for 4 or 5 rounds if I'd have had my right mind. I was knocked out. I was knocked out all this time. I'm not that game. I'm not that crazy.
Big Jess described his own fighting style this way.
I thought I could beat anybody because I had a good left hand and a right hand uppercut. That's all I had on earth. I never had any of their punches. But I hit them I kept off of it a long left hand. And then when they got close to me, I let him have that uppercut. And that fixed it.
But now let's take a look at the man he'll be meeting in our computerized 3rd fight for the all-time heavyweight tournament. He reached the peak of his career at 23. He was 6 feet 1 1/2 inches tall, weighed in at 200 pounds, reach 76 inches. So in the fight with Willard, Joe gives away 5 inches in height, 52 pounds in weight, 7 inches in reach. That's tough in any man's war.
It may be tough, Guy. When you take a look at Louis and his outstanding ring record, you have to concede that not much fazed him. Joe was an outstandingly aggressive fighter, a potent two-fisted combination hitter who has to rank among the best punchers of all time. Joe was a great finisher, too, who, if he had you hurt, wouldn't let up for a second. If he could hit you, he'd murder you. And as you recall, Guy, Jim Braddock said if you blink your eyes, Louis would hit you 10 times and hurt you everywhere he hit you. The Las Vegas line on the fight makes Joe Louis a 5-2 favorite to win.
We'll be back in just a minute.
And now that about wraps it up for tonight's broadcast of the 2nd fight in the all-time heavyweight tournament, with John L. Sullivan defeating Jimmy Braddock in 15 rounds. Next week, same time, same station, it's the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis, versus the Potawatomi Giant, Jess Willard.
Remember, everybody, you can still submit your entries in the all-time heavyweight championship contest. You may win that beautiful 26-foot Seabird sedan cruiser worth $12,000. Nothing to buy, remember. Contest closes midnight, November 5th. Now, this is Guy LeBeau.
And Murray Warner. Thanks for listening, and tune in again next week.
From Miami, Florida, you've been listening to the All-Time Heavyweight Tournament, a copyrighted feature of Warner Productions.